War is organized murder and nothing else. These were the words of Harry Patch, the last surviving soldier of World War One. And we today have an ongoing war, a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So here in my final report, I will be analyzing the critical analysis of the concept of peace vis-a-vis the Russian and the Ukrainian war, and these are the contents which I will be covering: the brief history of Russia and Ukraine, the status of Ukraine after the collapse of USSR, the recent history of Russia and Ukraine conflict, what could be the other causes apart from this conflict which are detrimental to the peace, how this ongoing war violates the concept of negative peace, how it violates the concept of positive peace, and how Russia and Ukraine can achieve a sustaining peace after ceasefire. We have a peace roadmap for it and a punch shield roadmap for it. So let's start with the history of Russia and Ukraine. As you can see in the map, there is this red area in the map is the Kievan Rush, which is basically a millennium ago Ukraine lay today at the heart of this Kievan Rush. And Kievan Rush was a federation of Eastern Slavic, Baltic, Finnic people of the northern and eastern Europe, with its capital in Kiev. Now, the modern day Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus all trace their origin to this Kievan Rush. Now, what happened in the 18th century, the Empress Catherine, she basically absorbed the entire ethnic Ukrainian territories into the Russian Empire, followed by the Tsar Nicholas II. His policy of Russification led to the suppression of the ethnic people of Ukraine. Their ethnic identities and languages were suppressed, and Tsar used to give a very famous statement: there is one Tsar, one church, and one Russia. Within the Russian Empire, well, many Ukraine rose to prosperity, but 3.5 million Ukrainian people fought for Russia in the World War I. Well, this happened when after the October Revolution of 1917, after the Bolshevik Revolution of the Lenin in 1917, Ukraine also became the part of USSR, and this was the map of Ukraine. This was the flag of Ukraine at that particular point of time. In 1922, Ukraine became the part of Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, that is the USSR. And what happened to Ukraine after the collapse of USSR, this is also, we will be covering a brief history about it. In 1991, when USSR was dissolved, the demands for independence had increased in Ukraine. There were 3 lakh people who founded a chain, or a human chain, for the freedom, which was followed by a Granite Revolution. And on 24th August 1991, after the failure of coup to remove the president Mikhail Gorbachev, what happened was that the communists restored to power, and the parliament of Ukraine adopted its separate countries act of independence, and Leonid Khrushchev was elected as the first president of the Ukraine by the parliament of Ukraine. So this is the human chain which I was talking about. There were 3 lakh people who gathered around from Lviv to the Kiev. And this is the Granite Revolution, the pictures of Granite Revolution, in which the students were sitting on the platforms of granite and they were protesting against an agreement with the USSR. So now, in December 1991, the leaders of Belarus, Russia, as well as Ukraine, they came together and they formed the CIS, which is the Commonwealth of Independent States. But what happened is really quite striking, that the Ukrainian parliament never ratified this accession. So it was never technically a CIS. Now, the recent history of Russia and Ukrainian conflict, that in 2014, Russia has annexed Crimea from Ukraine following a hastily called referendum, a move that sparkled fighting between the two groups from Russian side and from the eastern border of the Ukraine, the government of Ukraine. And recently, Ukraine has urged to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that is the NATO. Now, this is the igniting fire between both the two countries. Vladimir Putin has categorically stated that for us, it is mandatory to never allow Ukraine to become the part of NATO. And Russia has a context, it says, that demands NATO to restore its position back to 1997, and there should be, NATO should recede from its expansion as well. And, well, there are other causes of this ongoing Russian and Ukraine conflict as well. Now, Russia has recently declared NATO as a red line, but as I said, there are other causes. The first is the shared history. Russia and Ukraine have the shared history of thousands of years of cultural, linguistic, and familial links. And seeing a country progress, and there are other issues which basically quadruples the situation between Russia and Ukraine. This entanglement of Russia and Ukrainian history could also be a cause which is detrimental to the peace. Emotional exploitation of the people. Now, for many in Russia and also in the ethically Russian parts of Ukraine, the shared heritage of the countries is a very emotional issue that has been exploited not only for electoral purposes, but on both the sides for military purposes as well. And balance of power. Now, ever since Russia has split from the USSR, both Russia and West, they want to get a greater influence in the Ukraine. And the other reason is acts as a buffer. Definitely, Ukraine acts as a buffer between the European Union and also the Russia. As the tension with the Russia rises, what happens is that the United States and the European Union are increasingly determined to keep Ukraine away from the Russian control. Now, coming to the main part, how this ongoing war violates the concept of negative peace. Well, John Galtung had to say that negative peace is the absence of any kind of a direct violence. Direct violence includes assault, riot, terrorism, or war. So any kind of absence of personal direct violence is basically negative peace. And how this Russian and Ukrainian war violates it, let's have a look with some pictures. So the first picture is of Mrs. Olena Kurvela. She is aged 53. She was a teacher, and when her house was bombarded in Kharkiv on 24th of February 2022, when Russia violated any kind of agreement, and it made the war between Russia and Ukraine. So you can see how the direct violence was there and how Russia violated the concept of negative peace. This is the second image. This is, you can see the firemen trying to shut down the fire by sprinkling water. This is a building, an apartment in the district of Kiev. Direct violence again. This is again a very iconic picture of the year 2022. Her name is Marina Vergiskova. She's been standing outside a maternity hospital, and the maternity hospital was bombarded by Russia. This was a direct violence by Russia, which violated the concept of negative peace. She was pregnant and she gave birth to her child in another maternity hospital. Now let's move ahead towards how this war violates the concept of positive peace. Well, John Galtung was very clear in stating the concept of positive peace. He said that positive peace is the absence of structural violence as well as cultural violence. Now, any kind of poverty, hunger, discrimination, apartheid, racism, discrimination, exploitation, suppression, all these are a part of indirect violence, and this war also violates this concept of positive peace. So the negative peace was violated when on 24th February 2022, when Russia declared a direct war with Ukraine, the concept of negative peace was violated. When the war went ahead, the concept of positive peace was violated. You can see so many Ukrainian people. These are the images of the Ukrainian refugees in the town of Irpin in Ukraine. They have become refugees. They had to flee their home due to Russian exploitation. And many people of these will suffer from chronic poverty and hunger as well. The next image, you can see a mother and her daughter walking away from Ukraine. And according to a UN report, Ukrainian war-induced crisis is affecting the women and their children disproportionately. Another example of how war violates positive peace. Now you can see an elderly woman. She's sitting in the lines, and she's trying to get her rations. She's trying to get her food. Again, suffering from hunger, suffering from poverty. Again, this war violates the concept of positive peace. Now, the next image here, you can see a woman. She's pushing trolley and with her belongings with a street which has been damaged by Ukrainian and Russian conflict in the town of Volonokava in Donetsk region. And according to a UNDP report, 9 out of 10 Ukrainians could face severe poverty and extreme economic vulnerability if the war drags on for the next years as well, wiping wiping out altogether the 20 years of economic gains which the Ukraine had there. Now, how Ukrainian war and Russia and Ukraine can have achieve sustaining peace after ceasefire? So let's expand the word peace itself. Now, the peace can be expanded. P here stands for participatory dialogue and positive environment and perseverance. E for empathy and equity. A for amity among Russia and Ukraine and accommodativeness. C for coordinated collaboration, and E for ethical conduct. When I say participatory dialogue, these two countries, after ceasefire, they have to have dialogue and discussion at frequent intervals of time. A positive environment is very must. A positive environment of mutual trust as well as confidence, more P2P contact and perseverance. Well, positive peace will take a lot of time, and this has to be done with diplomatic and other issues as well. E stands for here in peace, in the peace roadmap, E stands for empathy. Well, empathy means putting yourself into the shoes of others and just feeling what the people are being or are experiencing. So empathy is very important, and empathy can help in enduring peace process by placing the international communities and Russia into the shoes of Ukraine. And equity will definitely bring impartial justice, and that will be promoting more peace. Now, A here stands for amity. Amity means more friendly relations between Russia and Ukraine need to be established for lasting peace. Russia needs to admit to its war crimes and start to respect the UN Charter. This is the most important thing. Russia should also be required to pay the restitution for the loss of property and the damage to the property they have caused in the Ukraine. And only amity then can surface, and accommodativeness. Well, accommodativeness can escort the victim community towards association with the international community. And accommodativeness on the part of Russia can restore the relationship, not only restore the relationships, but also establish new bonds and establish social connection. When there is accommodativeness, the sustaining peace shall prevail. And C for coordinated collaboration. There has to be a coordinated collaboration for peace. Russia and Ukraine have strong cultural political ties which must be respected, which must be reinvented for coordinated collaboration, and definitely ethical conduct, because UNESCO says that the peace must be founded, if it not has to fail, upon the intellectual and moral solidarity of mankind. So this is the peace roadmap which can achieve the sustaining peace after ceasefire. And this is the Panchsheel agreement, Panchsheel framework. Basically, this Panchsheel framework is from the Indochina Treaty of 1954, which can be used in the context of Russia and Ukraine as well. So the first thing we can see here is mutual respect to each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Then, more importantly, mutual non-aggression from both the parties, mutual non-interference in each other's internal affairs, equality and mutual benefit, and therefore peaceful coexistence. The Panchsheel framework is composed of those fundamental principles that can help us to sustain and endure this peace for a longer time between these two nations, and it can also help in establishing a lasting peace. So the way forward, I would just like to say what John Galtung had to say. By peace, we mean the capacity to transform conflicts with empathy, without violence, and creatively a never-ending process. This is the most important thing for both the parties here. And well, these are the list of references which were used in preparation of this final report. Thank you so much.